Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's time to do the final ranking and some how to play on Cosmic Ghost Rider. I like this guy so much I took him to rank 3 and I even used one of my 6-star awakening gems on him. We've done a few videos on him and the most common question I got was, but what is his rotation? And I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you his rotation and I'm gonna show you that you can really do a lot of different things with that rotation, but we will go over it while watching him absolutely destroy content. And then we'll talk about his negatives and do a final ranking on him. All right, make sure you hit like and subscribe so you catch all the content, and let's get to the show. All right, so we're going to talk about Cosmic Ghost Rider. We are going to go over the rotation, as I said, and I think the best way to jump straight into it is with these Realm of Legends fights. Not so much concerned with how quickly we can get them down, as much as showing the buff system, the judgment system, and then how that's going to translate into the damage that you can do and how quickly you can do it, right? So I think as we're going to talk about it as we go, and you want to keep in mind that there's the buffs. We'll talk about the buffs that come from performing certain actions, and then the judgments that they place upon the defender. And something to keep in mind is that once you hit those 5 judgments, you have about a 6-second power lock. It's either 5 or 6-second power lock. And then that's going to fall off. They will turn into armor breaks, and you can then start the buffs over again. So triggering dexterity is not the end of the world. You're going to see how it can be really helpful to not trigger it, but over the course of this video we will show you what happens with you accidentally trigger it, or if you need to trigger it, and that you're still fine. You will still be fine. So let's jump into this here against Winter Soldier. In this fight, I'm going to demonstrate what happens if you go all the way to the SP3. It does, I think, create a longer fight in these scenarios. We've ended our first combo with a medium. That gives us the vigilance buff there, and also placed a judgment on. We then finished our next combo with the light attack, giving us the power up buff and placing a second judgment. And then now we're going to work our way to the SP3. We will parry and heavy to trigger the aptitude buff, and then also the massive fury and the buff that comes from throwing any special at all. So we've got all of the large buffs on. We will now have 5 judgments placed on Winter Soldier, as you'll see. And so he is now power locked. We're going to be able to go in and continue hitting on him. I am intentionally not triggering dexterity here. So the judgment system has reset. As you see, we ended with the medium to trigger vigilance again. We ended with a light to trigger the power game. We're now up to the SP2. So we'll want to parry, heavy, straight into the SP2 to get the massive, massive crit damage. And now it's just a matter of finishing off this fight. We have 11 armor breaks because those have all stayed on. And we finished off with the with that power lock. And the fight is over. Now keep in mind, that fight just took 60 hits. That was going all the way to the SP3. All right, so now you've seen what happens if you don't trigger Dex. You go all the way to the SP3, and now we're going to take a look at something similar against Captain Marvel, except in this one, something's going to go wrong. I'm going to accidentally trigger Dex, and I think I'm accidentally going to get hit too. So let's go ahead and start this up. We're going to come in and end our first combo with a medium, triggering the vigilance, and then I think I'm about to. She goes into the heavy. I did not want to take that, so I dexed out. Now that triggered a couple of judgments, a couple of buffs. That's fine. You're okay if that happens. So we now have the 3 judgments on. I even get hit. But that means now we have 4 judgments. We've triggered that. It's a big armor up, actually. Look at how little damage there is. I've now I threw the heavy to trigger the aptitude, meaning we're at 5 judgments. Now remember what we talked about. Once you've triggered those 5 judgments, that bonus duration of any buffs you now trigger, once you're at the 5 judgments, you get a huge bonus in the duration of the buffs you trigger. So the fury that we just triggered by throwing the SP3 is going to be on there for a very, very long time. Look at this, it's going to stay with us. The power lock has ended, so we're now free to start resetting our judgments again. I've triggered vigilance with a medium ender. I've triggered the power game with a light ender. And now we can get that huge precision from the SP2. You see the damage it's doing. And this is what I want to show you. This is what I'm talking about. I made 2 mistakes there, right? Well, I don't know if it was a mistake to trigger Dex, but I triggered the dexterity. And then I even got hit. But I knew that once I get to the 5 judgments, I can then increase the length significantly of any buff I trigger at that point. So triggering that Fury allowed it to stay on for an extremely long time. Also, when the power lock comes off, I'm then free to re-trigger those judgments again, reset those buffs again, meaning if I don't trigger Dex and I get to the SP2, I'm still going to get the massive precision from it. And you saw how quickly we ended that fight. Now, just keep that in mind. The Winter Soldier fight where we made no mistakes was 60 hits. The Captain Marvel fight where we made mistakes but adjusted was 50 hits. Now, we're going to move into the Juggernaut fight. I did decide to use my gem. I had decided previously that I was going to use it, and it does add something nice. I'm still working on how to truly fully use it to, I think, its full capabilities. And even if it is something that you can use on demand, I'm not sure. That might be a very advanced level of play, but we're going to see it work out here a little bit. I did use it, and so we're going to move into the Juggernaut fight. Now, in this fight, I'm not going to use Dex. I'm going to get to my SP2 first, and then it looks like I'm going to accidentally use Dexterity, and then I'm going to mess up a little bit, but we're going to see how you can fix it when you mess up. So here we go. We're going to want to start with our medium ending combo, because that triggers the Judgment of Vigilance, which I have found to not be that effective, but it gets things going. And then recall that every buff you trigger afterwards is increased by 20%. So that meant the power gain will now last longer. So we ended in a light. I've been pushed pretty far here over the 2 bars of power. I think I'm just trying to get a parry so I can, there we go. We've triggered the aptitude and through the nice big SP2. So damage is going pretty good. We're at 5 judgments. Those have fallen off. They've turned into 12 armor breaks. So now we can ideally just go in. I mean, you see the big numbers that we're getting from our basic attacks. And now I've accidentally triggered Dex. It was an accident. I was starting the rotation over. That's fine. It's fine. Let's get it back to 5 judgments. And now we know we can start resetting things. Now I'm going to really try not to trigger Dex so I can get the huge precision from the SP2. Juggernaut, this is Realm of Legends, so the AI is not always super aggressive, but we're making it work. So that's something that if I can get across anything to you in this video, I've tried it in the previous ones, is I think Ghost Rider is really about staying calm, right? Of course, you'd like to play perfect, but it's like war. You're gonna make mistakes and stay calm, and you see what we did there. So I knew that once we got to 5, I let the 5 fall off, work my way towards the SP2 using the medium first, right? And then using the light ending second. And that was a lot of mistakes in that fight with class disadvantage, staying calm and going through it. 59 hits. Now we're going to move into the Black Panther fight. This is a great example of no Dex and going only to the SP2. So the Fury buff from the SP3 is huge. It's massive. But look what can happen if you just are able to not Dexterity and go straight to the SP2. So we end our first combo with the medium to trigger the Vigilance. Our next combo is going to end with a light attack to hit, trigger the power gain. You see how much power we now have. Parry, heavy to trigger the aptitude, SP2 to trigger the precision. And look at this damage that we're now doing. Because the judgments have fallen off, we're able to reset with the medium ender, then the light ender, and we're going to try to get another big SP2 here backed up. Unfortunately, I had a little phone interruption there, but I was able to parry heavy for the aptitude SP2, and that fight was done in 43 hits. Now let's think about that. The first fight versus Winter Soldier was 60 hits, and that was going all the way to the SP3. There was no mistakes, let's call them, in that fight. That was 60 hits. Then Captain Marvel with the 50 hits, we still went to the SP3, and it was 50 hits. Then Juggernaut, mistakes were made, no SP3, 59 hits. And then Black Panther, No mistakes, no reason to use dexterity early. SP2, only SP2, no massive fury from the SP3, and we got him down in 43 hits. That is significantly less. We've gone from 60 hits to 50 hits to 59 hits, down all the way to 43 hits. Making me think, maybe don't need to go all the way to that huge fury buff, right? It is nice. There's going to be fights, probably content where you feel like you need to do it or where it makes sense to do it. And as we've shown, if you make a mistake, going to it is not the end of the world. But in these very ideal situations with massive health pools, maybe you don't have to do it. Now, maybe you don't have a rank 3 6-star, and that's fine. So maybe it's something you do want to go to, but it's something to consider and it's something for you to pay attention to. All right. So now let's go, and I wanted just to show this because I think it's a nice example of what the Awakened ability can do here against this Wolverine, right? So we all know Wolverine, massive healing. This is a rank 3 Cosmic Ghost Rider. I really don't think he would struggle in this fight without the Awakened ability. But I want you to see what the Awakened ability can do to any buffs that your opponent has. Here we go. It's about to happen. So once we trigger that 5th judgment, because we have the Awakened ability, there's going to be damnation. You see it. And the healing from Wolverine is just gone. It's gone. And he's not going to be able to trigger these buffs until the damnation is gone. So it only lasts, I think, the 5 or the 6 seconds. But that's a good amount of time. And in a fight with huge healing like this, look, he's triggering a heal for 12,419. Just to be able to make that go away. Or I can think of opponents or nodes where when you have them cross a certain threshold of health, they trigger a massive heal. I think there's uses for this, and I'm very excited about it. I did want to wake him, and I think in War I might see it. Its uses really come out, and potentially in Book 2, which, as we now found out, not that far away. So Realm of Legends, I chose those because I thought they're one of the best ways to kind of start to talk about in a simple way his rotation, the judgment system, and the buff system, and what to do if you make a mistake. But look, I don't think a lot of us are taking Cosmic Ghost Rider to rank 3 so that we can do Realm of Legends. So I wanted to be practical with it. I don't want to just make a fluff piece and a hype piece on this guy. And I do think he has negatives, and we'll get to that. But I wanted to take him to Act 6, where maybe the nodes are a little bit more difficult, that yes, the health pools will be smaller. You need more utility, I thought. Well, here's the thing. I'm not so sure you need that utility on certain fights. And the fights where you need the utility, I don't think he's your guy. So here we go. We're going to go in against Sabretooth and see if he can out-damage the healing. We're going to not trigger dexterity. We're going to go straight to the SP2, which I think is a very good way to quickly access possibly even more damage, at least under a shorter period of time. One thing I want you to notice is we all know how hard Sabretooth can hit, and I've been blocking a lot of hits. Look at where my health bar is. It's at 98%. The block proficiency on this guy is extremely good, and I am running Suicide. So this is with the damage from them. Him being bleed immune is very helpful. But obviously, Sabretooth is absolutely no match here. We only had to throw one SP2, didn't even make it to the second one, and that fight is over. Now we're going to move on to the Stealth, which is the next fight on that. So dealing with some evade issues, right? And keeping in mind, so I had to evade there. He was going for the heavy. I did not want to take it to the face. I am beginning to wonder if in certain fights that might not be the end of the world with Cosmic Ghost Rider, but what do we know? So I went ahead and got to 5 judgments as quickly as possible. Not a big deal. They've already fallen off. We've ended a combo in a medium. Let's going to end this next one in a light attack so we can get to the SP2 as quickly as possible. Keeping in mind Stealth's potential for evade, but we can see that that possibility is down now. Pull back because I just really want to throw that SP2. Heavy first to trigger the aptitude, then throw the SP2, and it's goodbye Stealth. So I just think that was a really nice example of it. One thing I did forget to mention in that one, I want to pause this for a second, is that I did throw the SP1 in there, which does have an incinerate. And I think that's nice on a node like that with clapback, which would then potentially put that back on me. And I think it's nice that when your champion is immune to a certain damage they might be putting on. So it's just a nice benefit. I don't really think that's going to make or break the champion, but I did want to point that out. And then I thought, well, okay, I think it'd be dumb to test this guy on like a lane that applies poison or where I know he's weak, but let's see him against this Medusa, right? Like, let's see, can he bulldoze his way through this? I really like this is Act 6. I like to test champions on there, but usually it's someone who can nullify or it's someone with a slow ability, but I thought this guy is so impressive. Let's take him in here and let's see how this works, right? Let's see, can we out damage this node? And can we out damage Medusa? So we end it in our first combo in a medium, trigger Vigilance. In the next combo, in a light attack to trigger the power gain. Now she's gone unstoppable. Not much we can do about that. And if you understand how Medusa works, you have to really now pay attention to these living strands. I like to treat it as if it's war. I know that I could hit into it and she would just auto block it, but I like it. I like a real test. And let's treat it as if she would stun me, and I don't want to get stunned. So I'm going to really work through the living strands there. We're making our way to the SP3 because it's just the way this worked out. Actually, I'm sorry, I did trigger dexterity. So we made our way to the SP3, get the massive fury buff here, and watch what happens. Watch what happens to her fury buffs because we've now triggered our damnation. They're gone. They just got rid of her fury buffs. We can really start going in and start doing some big damage here. I made sure I did not trigger dexterity, so blocked those hits and look at the health pool of Cosmic Ghost Rider, his ability to just take minimal damage from these hits. Look, that's a special there, and that was doing 500 damage per hit. I mean, that is not very much. That is not very much at all. And if you do get hit, he triggers a massive armor up buff. I think this guy is well constructed for what he's supposed to do. He's one of those champions where they put thought into it. So the parry, aptitude buff from the heavy, SP2, and she is dead. She is dead. He just completely out damaged that node and got her down in 47 hits. I think the awakened ability helped there. I don't think that had to happen. You could get through parries, maybe hitting into her block or something like that. And then just for fun, just to kind of finish this off and give me an opportunity, I think, to talk about some of his negatives, I wanted to show the next fight in the lane against the Spider-Man, the Stark, who we all know you have to fight a little carefully, or at least you want to be, because he could evade you and do some real damage back. So as you see, we're going to go in, standard process. Hopefully you're really getting it. Hopefully it's really coming through now. Is you end the first combo with the medium, so you trigger the Vigilance. I like to do the second one as the power gain, remember, because the buffs get 20% longer after the first one. So you trigger the first one, the next one's gonna be 20% longer. And I think the key is just knowing how you can manipulate them and use them for your advantage on what's going on. You saw how quickly all of those fights went. Now, I am going to place him in my super premium. That is my second tier. My first tier is top shelf. I'm going to start this guy off in the super premium, and I'm doing that for two reasons. One, because I think he is awesome. As you just saw, there's nodes and lanes that he's probably not even supposed to take. You don't look at those and think, oh, they go unstoppable and have a chance to evade. Cosmic Ghost Rider. No, that's not what you're thinking. But he can just beat those fights down if you know what you're doing. And I think you might not even have to know what you're doing. But I'm not going to put him on the top shelf, and here's why. One is I don't want to make the mistake of just being so excited about a guy and raking him to R3 and being like, wow, he destroys stuff. He's obviously incredible. Well, it's an R3. He should be doing significant damage, or at least be a really great version of himself. The other negative is this. On those lanes, I eventually ran into a fight he could not take. It just was not going to happen. There was a MCoC, and I cannot think of the other fight in the other one. He just couldn't do it. Or if he did, the amount of damage I had to take was really made it improbable to continue on in the quest and make my way through it. I think that's a negative of his, but I also think it's a realistic negative. And I think a champion that could just do all this stuff would break the game and maybe get nerfed. So I'm happy that there are things he can't do. And I think for the most part, they're pretty obvious. He's not designed to do this. That's not why you should bring him. you wouldn't take Ghost into a fight where it's an armor break. No, they just places an armor break on you. It doesn't mean she's not amazing. She is. It's just that's not where you take her. So I'm placing him here. I think the other advantage is a lot of the fights that he couldn't do, he had a synergy partner or someone he reasonably synergizes with, or someone that you are happy to take with you that could do the fight. He has a great synergy with Night Thrasher, and I think Night Thrasher could handle a lot of the evade or fights like that, or the MCoC fight that otherwise Cosmic Ghost Rider could not. I think this guy is really awesome. I think if you can get your hands on him when he comes into the basic crystals, I think you're elated. I think you're excited. I think that next 6-star featured crystal has some amazing champions in Dragon Man. I love Professor X. I think he may be one of the best mutants. Apocalypse, and then of course Cosmic Ghost Rider. If you're into opening the features, I think that's a great way to go. And I think you're going to get a champion that can just absolutely steamroll through content. I think he is a little bit complex in that you really do need to understand the judgment system and the buff system and how to work with that. But if you can get down the differences in sometimes attacking with a medium, sometimes ending with a light, and you're comfortable manipulating the fight to how you want to maximize your damage and being able to stay calm and take advantage. If you've made a mistake, how can you reset this? I think he's an outstanding champion. I could see me putting him up into the top shelf one day. I want to see him in War, and I want to see Book 2. I hope you either learned something, were entertained, or even better, a little bit of both. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on Twitter at Vega Gaming 583. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.